The sky turned black at noon on a Tuesday, not from clouds or smoke, but from the massive ships that blocked the sun. They appeared without warning over every major city on Earth. Commander Do-hyun Kim stood frozen at the main window of Lunar Base Alpha, his dark eyes fixed on the blue planet below. The view that had once brought him peace now filled him with horror. "Commander, we're getting calls from every defense center on Earth," said Lieutenant Han, his voice shaking. "What do we do?" Do-hyun did not answer right away. His mind raced through options, but found none. The lunar base was a command center, not a fortress. They had some weapons, but nothing that could touch those massive alien ships. "Get me a line to the Vengeance," Do-hyun finally said. "I need to speak with Captain Park." As Han worked, Do-hyun watched the first flashes of light from Earth's surface. Their defense systems were firing. Small dots rose from the ground toward the alien ships. Missiles, fighter jets, everything they had. None of it seemed to matter. The screen in front of Do-hyun lit up, showing the face of Captain Jisoo Park. Her black hair was pulled back tightly, her face calm despite the chaos he knew must be happening on her ship. "Do-hyun," she said, "no titles or formality now. Not at the end of the world. The Vengeance is taking heavy damage. These aliens, they call themselves the Vespid. Their weapons." She paused as her ship shook. "Nothing we have can stop them." "Where is Hana?" Do-hyun asked, thinking of their daughter. "Safe for now. Her research base is hidden in the mountains. She's trying to learn anything she can about them." Another shake, stronger this time. A crew member shouted something off-screen. "Jisoo, listen to me," Do-hyun said, leaning closer to the screen. "Protocol Omega. Do you remember?" Jisoo's eyes widened. "That's just a theory. We never finish." "It's all we have now," Do-hyun cut in. "I'm sending you the full files. Get as many people off Earth as you can. Take the stealth carriers. Save what's left of us." "And you?" Jisoo asked, though she already knew the answer. "Someone has to stay and give you time," he said simply. "I love you. Tell Hana I'm proud of her." The connection cut as another blast hit the Vengeance. Do-hyun turned to his team, all watching him with fear in their eyes. "Send the Protocol Omega files to the Vengeance. Then wipe our systems," he ordered. "After that, we have one job. Make enough noise to keep the aliens looking at us instead of the escape ships." In her lab deep under a mountain, Dr. Hannah Kim worked frantically. The research base had been built for secrecy, not survival. But right now, that secrecy was keeping them alive. Screens around her showed news feeds from around the world. Cities burning. Defense forces crushed. The president dead after the aliens shot down Air Force One. On one screen, a reporter was mid-sentence when a blast hit, and the feed went dark. "Dr. Kim, look at this," said Dr. Jun, pushing a tablet toward her. "I've analyzed the alien ship designs. They match your predictions from last year." Hannah took the tablet, her stomach sinking. 3 years ago, she had written a paper about possible alien civilizations. She had warned that any aliens advanced enough for interstellar travel would likely see humans as primitive. She had been right, and it gave her no joy. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "Going dark. Find a way to Pluto's moon Charon. Safe house there. Protocol Omega in effect. Dad says he loves you. Stay alive." Hannah felt cold. Protocol Omega was a last resort, a plan so extreme it had never moved past theory. If her mother was invoking it, Earth was already lost. "Everyone, pack up," Hannah announced to her team. "Take only what you can carry and anything about the aliens. We're leaving." "Going where?" asked June. "Every city is under attack." "Not every city," Hannah said, pulling up a map. "The aliens are focused on population centers and military bases. We need to get to the old launch facility in the desert. There's an emergency shuttle there." As her team rushed to pack, Hannah downloaded everything from their research servers. If they survived, They would need this data, and they would make the aliens pay for every human life they took. On the bridge of the EDS Vengeance, Captain Jisoo Park watched her world die. The ship shuddered as another Vespid blast hit them. "Shields at 12%, Captain," reported her tactical officer. Jisoo tightened her grip on the armrests of her chair. The Vengeance had been Earth's proudest warship just hours ago. Now it was barely holding together. "Status of the stealth carriers?" she asked. "Alpha and Gamma are loaded and ready. Beta is at 80% capacity." Jisoo nodded. Those 3 ships were humanity's last hope. Designed to be invisible to most sensors, they were being loaded with as many people as they could hold. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, civilians, anyone they could save. "New transmission from the Vespid flagship," her communications officer called out. On screen, Jisoo ordered. The view screen showed an alien face. It looked like a mix between a human and a wasp, with compound eyes and mandibles that clicked as it spoke. "Humans of Earth," the alien said in oddly perfect English. "I am Supreme Commander Vex of the Vespid Empire. Your resistance is futile and illogical. Surrender now, and we will spare 10% of your population as a labor force." Jisoo stood, her face hard as stone. "This is Captain Jisoo Park of Earth. We will never surrender to invaders who attack without provocation or warning. Earth has done nothing to you." The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly, perhaps a sign of amusement. "You exist. Your planet has resources. That is provocation enough. You have 1 hour to surrender, or we will glass your continents one by one." The screen went dark. "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "we need to go. Lunar Base Alpha has gone silent. The Vespids are turning their attention to our remaining ships." Jisoo closed her eyes briefly. Do-hyun was gone. Their last conversation replayed in her mind. He had given his life to buy them time. She would not waste it. "Order all remaining Earth forces to launch everything they have at the Vespid ships," she commanded. "Tell them to be as loud and destructive as possible." "But Captain, they can't win." "I know," Jisoo cut him off. "They're not trying to win. They're covering our escape. Once the stealth carriers are full, we leave, heading for the outer solar system." On the tactical display, she watched as Earth's military made its final stand. Fighters, missiles, even nuclear weapons rose to meet the Vespid ships. None of it did any real damage, but it created chaos and distraction. Under that cover, 3 stealth carriers slipped away from Earth, carrying 5,000 humans and the complete digital archives of human knowledge. No one looked back as the Vespid weapons turned continents to glass. Do-hyun watched from the lunar base as the carriers escaped. His sensors picked them up, which meant the Vespids might too. He had one last job to do. "Target the nearest Vespid ship," he ordered. "Fire everything we have." The lunar base's weapons were small, but they caught the attention of the nearest Vespid cruiser. "Commander," said Lieutenant Han, "they're turning toward us." "Good," Do-hyun replied. He opened a channel to broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Commander Do-hyun Kim of Earth. You may kill us, but humanity will survive. And one day we will return. War has a price, and it will be your turn to pay." He didn't know if the Vespids heard or understood his message. It didn't matter. The message wasn't for them. It was for Jisoo, for Hana, for every human who escaped. A reminder and a promise. As the Vespid weapon charged, Do-hyun closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw Earth as it had been. Blue oceans, green forests, cities lit up at night like stars brought down to Earth. The Vespid weapon fired. Lunar Base Alpha, and everyone in it, was vaporized in an instant. But far away, 3 ships carrying the last of humanity slipped into the darkness of the outer solar system, unseen and unknown. And with them traveled the seeds of vengeance that would one day bloom among the stars. 10 years passed since Earth fell. Deep inside an ice cave on Charon, Pluto's largest moon, Captain Jisoo Park stood before a wall of small lights. Each light represented a human settlement hidden throughout the solar system. There were 37 lights now. 10 years ago, there had been only 3. Jisoo's hair had turned gray. Lines marked her face, but her eyes remained sharp and clear. She touched one of the lights, labeled Deimos Base. "Status report," she said to the young woman next to her. Lieutenant Yoonji Choi nodded and checked her tablet. At 26, Yoonji had been just 16 when Earth fell. She had lost both parents in the attack. Now she was Jisoo's best communications officer. "Deimos is stable," Yoonji reported. "Their farm modules are working at 90% capacity. They've added 12 new babies this year." Jisoo nodded. New births were precious. From the original 5,000 survivors, their population had grown to nearly 7,000. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "And the stealth systems?" Jisoo asked. "Holding," Yoonji said. "The Vespids still think Mars is empty. They never go near Deimos." After destroying Earth, the Vespids had set up bases on Venus and Mars. They mined the asteroid belt and had a small outpost on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, but they never came to the outer planets. Too cold, too far, too little worth taking. That mistake had saved humanity. "Captain," Yoonji said hesitantly, "Minho's team is back from Mars." Jisoo's head snapped up. "They're early. Why wasn't I told?" "They just landed." He said they found something important. Really important. Without another word, Jisoo headed for the landing bay. The corridors of Charon Base were narrow and cold. Heat was precious this far from the sun. Everyone wore thick clothes and moved quickly to stay warm. The landing bay was warmer due to the ships inside. 3 small scout ships sat in the bay. One still had its engines hot from landing. As Jisoo entered, she saw a young man jumping down from the ship's hatch. Minho Lee had been a frightened boy of 12 when Jisoo found him hiding in the cargo hold of the Vengeance during the escape from Earth. Now he was 22 and one of her best pilots. His parents had died in Seoul during the first attack. Jisoo had raised him alongside other orphans, teaching them to survive in their new harsh reality. "Minho," she called. "Report." He turned, his face lighting up when he saw her. Despite everything, Minho smiled easily. It reminded Jisoo of her husband, Do-gyun. Both had the same quiet strength. "Captain," Minho said, saluting quickly, "we need to talk in private, and Dr. Kim should be there too." Jisoo studied his face. Whatever they had found, it was serious. She tapped her communicator. "Hana, meet me in Command Room 1. Now." Dr. Hannah Kim entered the command room 15 minutes later. At 45, she looked older than her years, her face thin and tired from endless work. She had spent the last decade studying the Vespids from afar, learning their biology, their technology, their weaknesses. "Mother," she said with a nod to Jisoo. Then she noticed Minho. "What did you find?" Minho placed a small device on the table. It was clearly a Vespid design, shaped like a hexagon with a glowing center. "We managed to get into their Mars command center," Minho explained. "Yoonji's new stealth tech worked perfectly. They never knew we were there." "You took a huge risk," Jisoo said sharply. "It was worth it," Minho insisted. "This is their complete communication node. It contains everything: their fleet positions, their empire structure, their plans." Hannah picked up the device carefully. "You got this out without triggering any alarms." Minho grinned. Yoonji figured out how to make a copy that would keep reporting fake data. They think it's still there and working fine. Jisoo felt a rush of pride, quickly followed by fear. "What did you learn?" Minho's smile faded. "The Vespids have conquered 17 other species before us. Earth was just their latest victory." He tapped the device, and a holographic map appeared above the table, showing hundreds of stars. "This is their empire. Hana and Jisoo stared at the map in silence. The Vespid Empire was vast, spanning what looked like a quarter of the galaxy. "We can't fight this," Jisoo whispered. "Actually, we can," Minho said firmly. "Because I also learned their weakness." He tapped the device again. The map zoomed in on one star system. "This is their homeworld, and it's barely defended." "Why would they leave their home unguarded?" Hana asked. "Because they're arrogant," Minho explained. "They believe no species they've conquered could ever strike back. Their main forces are always on the edge of their territory, looking for new worlds to take, and they think humanity is extinct." Jisoo straightened her back, her mind racing. "What else?" "Their biology," Minho said, looking at Hana. "I got samples. Their DNA, if you can call it that. Their blood, even their food." Hana's eyes widened. For years, she had worked with limited data, trying to understand Vespid biology from distant scans and old Earth transmissions. Real samples would be priceless. "Give them to me," she said urgently. "If I can study actual Vespid biology, I might be able to find a way to hurt them." Jisoo nodded slowly, then turned to a console on the wall. She pressed her hand against it, and a hidden panel slid open. Inside was a small black box. "It's time," she said quietly. Minho looked confused. "Time for what?" Jisoo took out the box and placed it on the table. "Protocol Omega. The final plan my husband and I created before the invasion." She opened the box, revealing a data chip. "This contains the designs for weapons we hoped we would never need to build. Weapons that could destroy an entire species." Hana stared at her mother. "You never told me about this." "Because it's wrong," Jisoo said simply. "These weapons would make us as bad as them." But Do Hyun believed that if humanity faced extinction, any means of survival would be justified. She pushed the box toward Hana. "With your new samples and these designs, you could create something that targets only Vespids." The room fell silent. What they were discussing was genocide. The same crime the Vespids had committed against Earth. "We won't be like them," Hana finally said. "I'll create something that incapacitates, not kills. Something that gives us an edge without making us monsters." Jisoo nodded, relieved. "How long?" "With these samples?" "A year, maybe less." "Good." Jisoo turned to Minho. "We need more intelligence. I want to know everything about their ships, their weapons, their tactics." Minho nodded. "Yoonji and I can set up a regular scouting schedule. We'll need more pilots, though." "You'll have them," Jisoo promised. She looked at the star map again, at all those worlds under Vespid control. It's time humanity stopped hiding. 6 months later, Charon Base had changed. New sections had been built. Training rooms where survivors learned to fight. Workshops where engineers built new weapons and ships. Labs where Hana and her team worked day and night. In the largest new room, Jisoo stood before 500 people. Pilots, soldiers, scientists, and engineers. They were humanity's new army. "For 10 years, we have survived," she began. "We have hidden in the darkness and the cold, far from the enemies who destroyed our home. We have grown stronger while they grew complacent." She gestured to the wall behind her, where a large screen showed an image of Earth, once blue and green, now gray and dead. "They took everything from us," she continued. "Our world, our families, our future. They believed they had wiped humanity from the universe." The room was silent. Everyone there had lost someone when Earth fell. But they were wrong. Jisoo said, her voice growing stronger. "We are still here. We have survived. And now we are ready to fight back." Cheers erupted from the crowd. "It won't be easy," Jisoo warned when the noise died down. "The Vespids control half the galaxy. But thanks to the bravery of our scouts and the brilliance of our scientists, we now have weapons that can hurt them, ships that can evade them, and a plan that can defeat them." She straightened to her full height, her eyes burning with the fire of 10 years of silent rage. "In 6 more months, we strike. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for justice, for Earth, for everyone we lost. The crowd rose to their feet, their faces set with grim determination. "Remember my husband's last words to the Vespids," Jisoo said. "War has a price, and it's their turn to pay." The roar of the crowd echoed through the base. In the back, Min-ho and Yoon-ji stood side by side, their hands clasped tightly together. The silent decade was ending. The time for vengeance had come. The small black ship moved through space without lights. Inside, Min-ho Lee checked his instruments one last time. Beside him, 3 soldiers prepared their weapons. No one spoke. They all knew their mission. This was the first strike of humanity's revenge. 5 minutes to Mars orbit, Min-ho said quietly. "Remember, we need to be in and out fast. Plant Dr. Kim's device and leave. No fighting unless we have to." The soldiers nodded. Each carried a small silver cylinder in a special case. Inside each cylinder was Hannah Kim's creation, a biological agent designed to attack only Vespid bodies. It wouldn't kill them instantly. It would make them sick first, spreading from one to another before they even knew they were infected. Approaching drop point, Min-ho announced, "Stealth systems at maximum." The ship slid into Mars orbit, invisible to Vespid sensors thanks to Yoon-ji's technology. Below them, the red planet had changed. Green domes covered parts of the surface, Vespid colonies where thousands of the aliens lived and worked. Min-ho's target was the largest dome, the main Vespid base on Mars. He brought the ship down slowly, landing on a flat area half a kilometer from the dome's edge. The ship's outer skin changed color to match the red Martian soil. "Let's move," he ordered. The team left the ship wearing special suits that hid their heat signatures. They moved quickly across the barren ground toward a small maintenance door that Yoon-ji's intelligence had identified as the least guarded entrance. Min-ho felt his heart pounding as they reached the door. 10 years of hiding. 10 years of planning. Now they were finally fighting back. On Charon Base, Jisoo Park stood in the command center. Around her, screens showed 20 other teams like Min-ho's, all approaching different Vespid outposts throughout the solar system. Each carried Hannah's biological weapon. "Team 7 has reached Europa," reported Yoon-ji from her station. "Team 12 is in position at Venus Base." Jisoo nodded. "Tell all teams. Deploy on my mark." She looked at the largest screen, which showed a countdown clock. In exactly 12 hours, all the biological agents would activate at once across the solar system. By then, all her teams needed to be safely away. "Any word from Min-ho?" she asked. Yoon-ji shook her head. "Radio silence as planned. He'll report when the mission is complete." Jisoo tried not to worry. Min-ho was her best pilot, almost like a son to her after all these years. But every team member knew the risks. Some might not return. "Mother." Jisoo turned to see Hannah entering the command center. Her daughter looked tired but determined. "Phase 2 is ready," Hannah said. "The communication virus has been loaded into all our team's equipment. As soon as the Vespids start falling sick, we'll hit their networks too." "Good," Jisoo said. "Are you sure your agent will work?" Hannah nodded. "I tested it on the Vespid tissue samples. It targets their respiratory system. They'll be too weak to fight but not dead, just as we planned." Neither woman mentioned their real fear, that the Vespids might react by destroying what remained of human settlement areas in the solar system. But those areas were already empty. For the past 6 months, they had quietly moved all remaining humans to the outer moons and bases. Any Vespid revenge would find only abandoned shelters. "It's time," Jisoo said, looking back at the screens. "Yoon-ji, give the order. All teams deploy." Min-ho and his team moved silently through the Vespid base. The aliens around them were tall, with bodies like armored wasps walking on 2 legs. They had 4 arms and compound eyes that glowed slightly in the dim light. The humans stayed in the shadows, their suits making them nearly invisible. They had studied Vespid movements and behavior for years. They knew when to move and when to freeze. Minho checked his map. They needed to reach the central air system. Hana's weapon would spread fastest that way. This way, he whispered to his team. They slipped down a corridor and through a maintenance door. Beyond it was a large room filled with machinery. The environmental control center. Perfect. Set charges here, and here, Minho ordered, pointing to key points in the system. Timers for 20 minutes. That gives us just enough time to get back to the ship. As his team placed the silver cylinders, Minho watched the door. No Vespids had seen them yet. Maybe their luck would hold. Then an alarm sounded. "That's not for us," said one of the soldiers, checking a scanner. "Something's happening on the other side of the base." "Finish placing the charges," Minho ordered. "We stick to the plan." As the last cylinder was put in place, a voice came over Minho's hidden communicator. It was Yoonji. "All teams be advised. Vespid fleet movement detected. 3 warships just jumped into Mars orbit. This is not related to our operation. Repeat, not related to our operation. Something else is happening." Minho frowned. "Team, we're leaving now. Stay in formation." They slipped back into the corridor, heading for the exit. Around them, Vespids moved quickly, clearly responding to some emergency. None paid attention to the shadows where Minho's team hid. As they neared the outer door, Minho saw something strange through a window. Vespid ships were taking off, heading to orbit. Many ships. "They're leaving," he whispered. Something spooked them. His team made it back to their ship without being spotted. As Minho prepared for takeoff, he looked back at the Vespid dome. Whatever had caused the alarm didn't matter. In a few hours, Hana's weapon would begin its work. "Mission accomplished," he reported as they lifted off, returning to base. In the command center, Jisoo received reports from all 20 teams. Everyone had succeeded. The biological agent was now in place throughout the solar system. "Something strange is happening," Yoonji reported. "Vespid ships are moving everywhere. They're gathering their forces. Have we been discovered?" Jisoo asked sharply. "I don't think so," Yoonji said, studying her screens. "They're not heading toward any of our bases. They're heading toward the edge of the solar system, toward the jump point to their home system." "Show me," Jisoo ordered. The main screen changed to show the positions of Vespid ships. Hundreds of them, moving away from Earth, Mars, Venus, and the asteroid belt, all heading in the same direction. What would make them leave so suddenly? Hana wondered. Before anyone could answer, another alert sounded. "New contacts," Yoonji announced, her voice rising in surprise. "Many new contacts entering the solar system. They're not Vespid ships." The screen showed new vessels appearing at the edge of the solar system. Their design was completely different from the hex-shaped Vespid ships. "Are they human?" Jisoo asked, hardly daring to hope. "No," Yoonji said, checking the readings. "Unknown design, but they're firing on the Vespid ships." The command center fell silent as everyone watched the screen. The unknown ships moved with incredible speed, their weapons tearing through the Vespid fleet. "We need to know who they are," Jisoo decided. "Yoonji, can you intercept their communications?" Yoonji worked at her console, fingers flying over the controls. "I'm picking up something. It's not in any language I recognize." "Run it through all our translation programs," Jisoo ordered. Minutes passed as the battle in space continued. The Vespids were losing badly. "I have something," Yoonji finally said. "It's partial, but they're calling themselves the Arcadian Alliance. They seem to be at war with the Vespids too." Jisoo's mind raced. Another enemy of the Vespids could be a powerful ally for humanity, but they might also see humans as a threat. "Send a message," she decided, "on all frequencies, but directed at their fleet. Keep it simple. Humans of Earth greet the enemies of our enemy. We offer alliance against the Vespids." "Sent," Yoonji confirmed. No response yet. What about our plan? Hannah asked. The biological agent will activate in 11 hours. Jisoo considered their options. We proceed as planned. If these newcomers destroy the Vespids, good. If not, our weapon will weaken any that remain. Suddenly, a new signal appeared on Yoonji's console. They're responding. A voice spoke, the words stilted as if translated by a machine. Humans survive. Vespid said humans extinct. We Arcadian. We fight Vespid Empire for 50 cycles. You help. Jisoo stepped forward. This is Captain Jisoo Park of Earth. Humans survive. We hide. We fight. We will help you destroy the Vespids. There was a pause before the response came. Good. We talk. After battle. On the screen, the Arcadian ships pressed their attack against the retreating Vespids. It was no longer a battle but a slaughter. Send to all human teams, Jisoo ordered. Stand ready, but do not reveal your positions yet. We need to know more about these Arcadians before we trust them. As the command center hummed with activity, Jisoo looked at her daughter. The plan has changed, but the goal remains the same. One way or another, the Vespids will pay for what they did to Earth. The silent strike had begun, but not in the way they had expected. Now humanity had potential allies in their quest for justice. The war for revenge had entered a new phase. 6 months after the Arcadians arrived, the war against the Vespids had changed completely. Jisoo Park stood on the bridge of a ship that would have seemed impossible a year ago. The Vengeance Eye was 3 times larger than her old ship. It combined human stealth technology with Arcadian weapons. Around it flew 50 more ships of similar design, crewed by humans and Arcadians working together. Captain, called Yoonji from her station, the Arcadian commander is requesting to speak with you. Jisoo nodded. Put him through. The main screen showed Commander Tarek of the Arcadian fleet. Like all his people, he had blue-tinted skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Despite his alien appearance, Jisoo had come to trust him over the past months. Captain Park, Tarek said, his translator making his words clear. My scouts report the Vespid homeworld defenses are weaker than expected. Most of their fleet is still fighting on the far borders of their empire. Good, Jisoo replied. Our timing is perfect. What about the other species they conquered? 17 worlds have joined our alliance, Tarek confirmed. Each has sent ships. They all want to see the Vespids pay for what they've done. Jisoo looked at the tactical display, showing hundreds of ships gathered for the final attack. The Arcadians had been fighting the Vespids for 50 years, but had been unable to strike directly at their homeworld. Human stealth technology had changed that. Together, they could do what neither could do alone. We'd jump in 2 hours, Jisoo announced. Make sure all ships have Dr. Kim's defense against the biological counteragent. After the first attacks using Hannah's biological weapon, the Vespids had developed a counteragent to protect themselves. But Hannah had anticipated this and created a defense against their counteragent. The Vespids didn't know this yet. All ships are protected, Tarek confirmed. Your daughter's work is remarkable. Jisoo felt pride at those words. Hannah had become a hero to the entire alliance. What about Minho's team? She asked. In position, Yoonji reported. They've infiltrated the Vespid Central Communication Hub. When we give the signal, they'll broadcast our message to every Vespid world simultaneously. Jisoo nodded. Everything was ready for the final battle. On the Vespid homeworld, Minho Lee and his team moved carefully through a massive structure filled with communication equipment. After months of fighting alongside the Arcadians, they had learned much about Vespid technology and security. Almost there, whispered Subin, the team's tech expert. She had been training under Yoonji for years and was now almost as skilled. The central hub was surprisingly empty. Most Vespids were soldiers, not technicians. Those few who maintained the communication systems had been easy to avoid. Here, Subin said, pointing to a large console. This controls all transmissions to Vespid colonies. Minho placed a small device on the console. Inside was a message recorded by Jisoo and translated into the Vespid language. It would play on every screen in the Vespid Empire at the same moment the attack began. Device planted. Minho reported through his secure communicator, ready to activate on your command. Good work, came Jisoo's voice. Return to your ship. The main fleet jumps in 30 minutes. Minho and his team began their careful retreat. As they moved through the corridors, he thought about how far they had come. From hiding in the outer solar system to leading an attack on the Vespid homeworld. Do-hyun Kim's final words had become the battle cry of an entire alliance. War has a price, and it's your turn to pay. In her lab aboard the Vengeance HFY, Hannah Kim checked her equipment one last time. The improved version of her biological agent was ready. This version would not just sicken the Vespids but would temporarily paralyze them. It would give the Alliance forces a crucial advantage in the ground fighting to come. Dr. Kim called one of her assistants. All teams report ready. Hannah nodded. Begin production of the antidote. The antidote was crucial to their plans. After the Vespids surrendered, the Alliance would need to cure them. Jisoo had been clear. They would not commit genocide, even against those who had tried to wipe out humanity. We're better than them, Jisoo had said. We want justice, not extinction. Hannah agreed. Revenge had driven them for years, but now they had a chance to build something better than what the Vespids had created. A true alliance of different species, working together instead of conquering each other. The intercom buzzed. Dr. Kim to the bridge, came her mother's voice. It's time. Jisoo stood before the main view screen as Hannah entered the bridge. The screen showed the combined fleet of the Alliance, over 300 ships from 18 different species, all united against the Vespids. All ships report ready, Yoonji announced. Jisoo turned to face the bridge crew. 10 years ago, the Vespids came to Earth without warning. They destroyed our world and believed they had wiped out humanity. They were wrong. She touched a control, and the screen changed to show an image of Earth as it had been. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land. Beautiful and alive. We fight today not just for ourselves, but for all species who have suffered under Vespid rule. We fight to end their empire of conquest and create something better in its place. Around the bridge, humans and Arcadians stood together, united in purpose. Begin jump sequence, Jisoo ordered. Signal Minho to activate the transmission. Let's show the Vespids that war has a price they must now pay. On the Vespid homeworld, the Supreme Emperor Vex watched reports from the border worlds with growing concern. The war against the Arcadians had been going poorly for months. Now other conquered species were rebelling as well. Impossible, he chittered to his generals. How could the Arcadians have gained such an advantage? Their technology was always inferior to ours. Before any could answer, every screen in the room suddenly changed. The image of a human female appeared, older, with gray hair and hard eyes. People of the Vespid Empire, the human said, her words translated perfectly into the Vespid language. I am Captain Jisoo Park of Earth. You believed you had destroyed humanity 10 years ago. You were wrong. Vex stared in shock. Humans were supposed to be extinct. Today, humanity returns, the human continued. Not alone, but with allies, all the species you have conquered and abused. We come not just for revenge, but for justice. The screen split to show images of Earth before and after the Vespid attack. The beautiful blue planet transformed into a gray, lifeless rock. This is what you did to our world, Jisoo said. These are the crimes for which you must answer. Alarms began to sound throughout the palace. Vex turned to his security chief. What is happening? Multiple jump signatures detected. The chief reported, his voice rising in panic. Hundreds of ships appearing in orbit. Our defense fleet is under attack. The human on the screen continued speaking, her voice calm but filled with cold rage. War has a price, Emperor Vex. My husband spoke those words as your weapons destroyed our lunar base. He promised that one day you would pay that price. Today is that day. The palace shook as the first bombs fell on the capital city. Get me to the evacuation ship, Vex ordered. His guards rushed him through corridors filled with panicking Vespids. Outside, he could see ships falling from the sky. Not crashing, but landing. Invasion ships. As they reached the royal hangar, Vex suddenly stumbled. His legs felt weak. His breathing became difficult. Around him, his guards were experiencing the same symptoms. Some fell to the ground, unable to move. Biological attack, gasped his chief scientist. Like the one in the colonies, but stronger. Vex tried to reach his ship, but his limbs would no longer obey him. He collapsed on the hangar floor, able to see and hear but unable to move. From the open hangar door, he watched as ships bearing the symbols of Earth, Arcadia, and many other worlds landed in the palace grounds. The humans had returned, and they had brought the full price of war with them. 1 week later, Jisoo Park stood in what had been the Vespid Emperor's throne room. Now it was the meeting place of the new Alliance Council. Representatives from 18 species sat around a large table, discussing the future. The Vespid military has surrendered on all worlds, reported the Arcadian commander Tarek. Those affected by Dr. Kim's agent are recovering, as promised. And Emperor Vex? Asked Jisoo. Awaiting your judgment, Tarek replied. As agreed, Earth has the right to decide his fate. Jisoo looked at Hana, who sat beside her. What do you think we should do with him? Hana considered for a moment. He should see what he did to our world. He should live there, in the wasteland his weapons created. Murmurs of agreement came from around the table. So be it, Jisoo declared. Vex and his high command will be exiled to Earth. They will be given basic tools and supplies, just as they left for the peoples they conquered. They will learn what it means to rebuild from nothing. As the council meeting continued, Minho entered and approached Jisoo. Captain, he said quietly, the memorial is ready. Jisoo nodded and rose to her feet. If you'll excuse me, she said to the council, there is something I must do. Outside the palace, a simple stone monument had been erected. On it were carved the names of Earth's lost cities and the billions who had died there. At the top were words in many languages. Remember Earth. War has a price. We paid ours. They paid theirs. May no species ever forget this lesson again. Jisoo placed her hand on the cool stone. We did it, Do-hyun, she whispered. Your final words became our strength. Earth is avenged, and something new has begun. Behind her, Hana, Minho, Yoonji, and others from Earth gathered. The last survivors of humanity, now the founders of something greater than the Vespid Empire had ever been, a true alliance of equals. The price of war had been paid, and from that payment, peace would grow.